program is being live streamed via Facebook and YouTube. And if you may have any comments or questions that you wish to ask, feel free to post it in the comment section and we would try to answer them along the way. So we had a nice introduction so far with respect to the use and the importance of Braille for each one of you. And moving along with respect to the main purpose of this morning's webinar, in the school system. Now, I know both of you would have used Braille in the school system versus one of you would be actually preparing persons or teachers in the Braille system to help students in school. If you were to give some importance, I mean, Miss Fitzallen would have probably touched on it a little in her introduction, but some importance of relevance of the Braille in the classroom. How important would you say the use of this system is for a child in school? And I would go firstly with Miss Madar.
Okay, so I'm a little bit different in the sense where I have been blind my entire life. So Braille is all that I know in terms of like writing. And as such, I use Braille all through school. Even when in secondary school, I used to use my computer to take notes and stuff in class. When I requested my exam papers, I would request math, especially in Braille, just for the purpose of the tactile things, right? The diagrams, and also just because it's easier, it was easier for me to read math that way, right? So I think Braille is definitely, it is definitely relevant now. It is definitely important now. And you know, we have things like refreshable Braille displays now, so you don't necessarily have to be walking around with a Braille machine to have Braille at your fingertips. You can connect it to the computer, that sort of thing. And I think about how much easier it would have been for me in school, even if I had like a refreshable Braille display then, where I can just use a flash drive and have Braille at my fingertips.
All right. Ms. Fitzallen, how important do you think Braille is for the student in the classroom?
Okay, so I can only speak, well, my experience and other persons that I've heard, but my experience was Braille is really, as I said, Braille is a system of reading and writing. So we need, as blind persons and persons who cannot really read print, we need to use Braille in our classes, whether we are integrated, whether it's private classes, whether we're in this mainstream, we need that. But one thing I want to mention, in my experience, the teachers and my classmates had to have interaction in terms of Braille, because the Braille in my days really noisy, writing. So, they had to get accustomed with me using my Braille and writing like notes or writing on my homework when my teachers would, read out what's the homework for me. Also, you could get your classmates involved in helping you with work, reading out notes, when you have like complications in your work, usually they would ask somebody to help you. So you get persons to sit with you and, help you while you read out your work, or while you read your work out, in terms of they would follow to make sure that, what you're saying is correct or whatever. In my school days, although sometimes you would get the Braille books a little later than usual, but it was really fun in terms of following along with the class when you actually have the Braille material with you, right? I think it's really important for a child to really have Braille. I know some may depend on technology, which is really good, but in terms of reading and in terms of writing, it's really important in terms of being able to write on your thoughts properly, be able to do essays and be able to, do your maths problems properly, be able, things like that, that you would need your braille or your slate and stylus, you would need to be able to develop yourself properly in terms of being literate in Braille.
So I agree. And Ms. Das, jump in here with your how important you think it may be, Braille in the classroom.
So Braille is very relevant in the classroom. When we say Braille is relevant, we mean Braille literacy because it allows the student to get a hands-on experience on grammar, spelling, punctuation, and also being able to keep up with your classmates. Yes, you can take notes and so in Braille as well, and you would also get an idea again how to um, edit maybe edit a document or even feel the layout of the page of a document if you have maybe comprehension passages, and you would get a feel of what paragraphing feels like, numbering, questioning, and not to mention when it comes to maths and that scientific discipline, as well as those students who may want to get into music as well. It is important to have your Braille or know your Braille, especially for maths, science, and music discipline as well. So yes, that is where Braille is very important. And also, we talk about touch, we talk about hearing, but persons also, let us remember, a sighted person will look at something and the whole anatomy of seeing. It is the same thing. Just now when we use touch, we touch the brain, the message is sent into the brain, and so the brain is able to identify, our fingertips can now identify what it is we are feeling, what it is we are touching. So hearing, yes, is important, but you see that aspect of touch, feel, reading your braille? Yes, yes, yes. If we really want to be on par with our sighted peers in our classroom, braille literacy is very important when it comes to that.
Right. So remember, friends, we are live on Facebook, TTBWA Blind Welfare Association Facebook page, and our YouTube channel, TTBWA Blind Welfare Association. So you can also share and follow, make your comments. And I just want to say, the importance of Braille to Braille users it's without being said, it's irreplaceable, right? And being a low vision person attending school, I observed that, I was no Braille user, but the importance of Braille in the absence of print is it's probably irreplaceable in the sense that audio, voice is not reading, it's listening. And I being a more audible person, I would listen to audio books. And in my days, I would have had books in cassette, those TDK 60-minute, 90-minute cassettes. And someone is reading this to you. You miss the punctuations, you miss the spelling, there are so many things you miss with listening versus reading. And when I would have used my magnifying glass to read printed versions of what I listened to, then I recognize, oh, this is how this word is spelled, or okay, there's a comma here, or an apostrophe estimated said there. And in other words, I'm saying is Braille provides you with all that information. It gives you all that information that you miss from someone reading to you and you listening to information. Over the past few weeks, as I mentioned in the start of this webinar, when we were visiting schools, there is something I have been mentioning to students and teachers alike. The computer, the technology, and even the Braille display, the ones that we are familiar with, and probably have multi-line Braille displays now that we are yet to have, in our presence. It does not allow mathematics solutions to be displayed or read out to us in a vertical format. So you might have 7.2 plus 8.3 plus 9 plus 0.4 coming down in a vertical manner with all the points lining up and all the 10th digits lining up and all the ones digit lining up and so on. What it does, it reads to us horizontally left to right. The Braille displays we have may or may not have more than one line at a time. And hence the reason why I heard Miss Madar spoke of the Braille display. I heard Miss Das spoke about some technology and so on there, and Miss Fitzallen spoke about the little stylus and the Braille machine. I am of the opinion, and you tell me if I am right or wrong, ladies, I'm of the opinion in the field of mathematics and science, physical Braille and a machine that allows us to present Braille in multiple lines is very, very relevant in order for a student to follow the different order of operations in mathematics or the different steps in mathematics, and for them to have a true appreciation line by line by line coming down of how the solution is done in print. I don't know what's your opinion on that, ladies. Anyone could jump in.
Well, I do agree what you're saying because when I used to do maths in school, laying it out on the Braille, yes, we had to do it like that, in a format where you can actually add or multiply or, to do your working properly, right? So it wouldn't be side by side, but laying it out properly, be one below the other, to be able to work out the maths problems properly. And also you can see that for music too, because I mean learning notes, musical notes, you have to have, in terms of learning music, that's the same thing that follows in Braille, right? And well, other things like it would be both of physics and chemistry and all of that. So yes, if you do have a machine that can do that, children, it will make it easier for students to be able to work out whatever they are working out. It will be better for them to actually visualize, because as Mr. said, touch, we go by touch, right? Everybody learn differently. And touch, persons who could have seen, like, and got blind eventually, when you touch, you visualize, so that's, I try to get my clients to visualize, what they're actually feeling, so they learn it
Right.
better.
And you mentioned touch and memory. I just want to make this point. When we do mathematics as persons who could see and you do mathematics, you have, for example, it's a simultaneous equations. That is dealing with two algebraic equations, equation 1, equation 2, and in most cases you have to create an equation 4 and 5, and then you have to minus one of the equation from 4 and 5 to get back to one equation. Just by seeing it alone in that step formation, it's confusing. And when you don't have a system to actually track that order of operations So, for example, that same example I give you the simultaneous equation. If you don't have a system to track back, what was equation 1? Or what was equation 4? Or what was equation 3? And you have to depend on memory. It's almost a recipe for disaster or failure because you do not have a system to track it back. And why I am emphasizing on this is because I have observed over the past few meetings, there's this great emphasis on having a reader writer for persons who are totally blind and not using Braille as one. And to me, that reader writer concept may work for more theoretical subjects, essay type subjects. But when you have to do mathematical operations, when you have to do accounts, when you have to do sciences, when you have to do things that requires formulas and solving formulas, you have to depend a lot on memory. And going back to the point that both Beverly and Ms. Das raised, the sense of touch, going back to what you touch, going back to what you would have done to remember it. Now, there is some type of Braille system. Ms. Das would have alerted to it. Beverly mentioned it as well. Music Braille, mathematics Braille. What else we have? We have Spanish Braille.
Yeah, computer Braille.
There's, sorry?
Computer Braille.
Computer, right. So what I want to point out is we have something called the Universal English Braille Code, UEB. And that Universal English Braille Code covers practically all the different types of the Braille systems we just mentioned there. And it also allows for the technology to convert those symbols, those signs, into print, vice versa. Print into those symbols and signs. What is your experience or what is your information or your knowledge with respect to the old Braille system, the new Braille system, and what is relevant? What is relevant to everyday use now?
Okay, so it's good that, Braille has, I'm really glad that Braille, the persons who came up with actually merging Braille and technology together. I'm really happy about that because at one time, Braille was Braille and technology was technology. And you would see more persons gravitating to technology because they started to believe, well, Braille, would keep them back. But I'm glad that person or persons have come and merge Braille where now you have the technology that you can use Braille, the orbit, the displayer, different things like that. Braille displayer. And probably other technology that you can really use Braille, right? So I'm glad about that. Anyway, yeah, so I'm glad about that aspect. Mr. Sipasal, can you repeat your question? Because I got a little.
Okay, so I was just speaking in terms of the different types of Braille systems, but and what you think is most relevant now, but they've probably give Ms. Das and Ms. Madara opportunity.
Well, can I I just got back on thought. In terms of the UEB Braille, no, the Braille itself, grade 1 and grade 2, without the and punctuations, the basic punctuations that we use, that is important for anybody to go through life with, whether you're reading, you're writing notes, you're reading a normal reading a novel, or you're labeling or whatever, grade 1 and grade 2. And the basic punctuations is important.
But
The
I just want to say something,
advanced,
Miss
sorry, go ahead.
Fitzallen.
Yeah.
Yeah, before Ms. Das and Ms. Madar comes in, one thing I want to say is that Braille is a evolving concept. It would have started off in one way, and it would have changed along the time. symbols would have been reassigned its purpose to make it more efficient. So while we accept responses from Ms. Das and Ms. Madar, I just want to ask Mr. Patier if anyone would have made any comments on the chats that we may need to know about. So Ms. Das or Ms. Madar, anyone you want to make any comments on this relevancy?
Okay, so with regards to the relevancy of the UEB, the Unified English Braille in terms of mathematics, yes, that is very, very important and relevant at this time for us here in the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago to go that way to learn the universal language of the maths. Because sometimes you may go abroad, some persons may migrate, or you may just go for holidays or something to another part of the world, and the document may land in front of you, braille, maths, signs, symbols, or you are asked to assist maybe a child or somebody. And if we do not know the universal code or the unified English braille code, it's like we backward and we not evolving and coming around with the times. So it is very, very relevant that we keep abreast and go this unified English braille way.
Yeah, but I could argue the point that if I teach this system, and I have everybody learning universal English Braille code, but when it comes to examination by the Secondary Entrance Assessment or Caribbean Examination Council, CXC, they might be still using the British Braille code system. So why should I learn it?
Okay, so that's where we would have to get them involved and go with the change as well, because it does not make sense that we teach one thing and then they still the same way.
Miss
That
Madar,
would be-
when you did exams, what did you do your exams in?
It was the British Braille code. When I used Braille, but I only use Braille for math. Most of my other subjects, I would have preferred to have, like I use my computer a lot for exams, but I also did Spanish in at CSEC level. And the good thing about UEB is you're really just learning one code. Like you don't have to worry about learning the math code or music code or you're just learning one code.
So you see, this conversation, ladies, is going to bring out something that needs to be said. While we support and I support the use of the Braille system in the classroom, we also need to get the stakeholders involved to understand which Braille system we support in the classroom. Because UEB, according to Shannon, Ms. Madar, are saying it's better to learn one code to represent almost everything else. But then the computer system, when it's embossing your exams, is saying, yes, let us use UEB because it's easier for the computer to identify with, interpret the codes, and work with it. But then you have examination bodies still using a system that is identifiable with the old system, the English Braille code system. And one second, and is it not at a disadvantage to the student, Beverly?
Yes, okay, so it would be a disadvantage because if you're teaching students now UEB and say CXC, the examination board is still using the English Braille, because in maths, right, we used to do English Braille. And then we started to using Nemet code, which is the American signs. And that was a bit confusing at first. So the UEB now basically for translation, as you're talking about exam, in terms of translating, it makes it easier throughout countries, not only, because English would have had their Braille way of writing, and America would have had their way of writing. And so it's to make it across the board, we're translating, whether it's books, whether it's maths, whether it's even games, board games and stuff like that, or labeling any symbols or anything like that. It makes it easier throughout, countries for all blind persons. So it's
Right. So I agree with that. It's standardize it. I agree with it. It's just about more than half an hour we have been doing this, and I don't know if there's any questions on the comments list, but remember we are live on the Facebook page, the Trying to Be Blind Welfare Association Facebook page, and our YouTube channel, Trying to Be Blind Welfare Association. I agree, Beverly, going back to the conversation, I agree.
Sorry
It's
to
good for
interject so far, no questions, so you all could continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patier. Yes, so and I agree so that it's good for standardization, but I just want us to understand something. I am going to schools, I am visiting children in schools. They have a challenge, they have a problem. They cannot, for some reason, we don't give emphasis on mathematics, enough emphasis on mathematics. So it's okay if they can't do the mathematics. They will do the English language, they will do the social studies, the sciences, and so on. And not the sciences, the social studies and the other literal subjects like literature and so on. My, I am still of the view somewhere in the future, some serious conversation needs to be done as to what system we're using for teaching our children Braille. Now, we are saying at the association we are using UEB. However, CXC is not saying they're going to use UEB. The UEB system and the association is helpful for standardization. When the exam comes in Braille, now I don't know the UEB system, I know the old Braille system, but I know for sure in the new UEB system, they take out some of the symbols. So for example, I think it's in 2 came off, things like, I think it's BLE also came off. And if you see that in reading your Braille paper as in the exam, would it not confuse you as a person who learned UEB Braille?
Yes, it would confuse me, because when I'm doing maths, like whether any child who is doing maths at home or in school every day, they wouldn't go through the whole different symbols at all times, whatever however they're working out their maths. Remember, maths is basically concept, what you understand and what is explained to you. So you wouldn't be using that every single day, only in the purpose of exams, right? So yes, what is being sent to you in your exam paper might be confusing, because you may have not been feeling that or reading it every day while you have been doing your maths work at home or in class. So it will be
Right.
confusing.
So it is fair to say we must ask for what we are practicing. We should not be requesting concessions that we are not practicing in the classroom. Is that fair enough to say so? Based on what you just outlined there, Beverly.
I think for me, when I was younger, exams was very nerve-wracking. So for a child, say you're not too very good at maths, or you're not very good at physics or chemistry or whatever, in terms of equations and all of that. And you're seeing these different symbols that you just bypass those questions when you know for sure you could work out something, but when you see something foreign, or when it confuses you and you may not do that well in your exam. So I think in terms of maths and anything with solutions or equations, we have to come up with, yes, UEB is important, but we have to come up with something because you want your child or your student to do well at exams, not crash in the exam and not be able to complete, and not feel, that, well, okay, I just forget about that. Some, as you said, Mr. Sipasad, some persons, they kind of move away from doing maths. In our days or my day, maths, if maths wasn't explained to you properly, yes, you move away from it. Now we have the problem of the Braille, you're talking about Braille. If you don't understand how the layout is, you just don't understand maths and you just don't want to do it in Braille. So we have to come up with a better way where students could get to be interested, because maths is still very important. When you're doing CXC, maths is a must, right? So
Excellent. Ms. Das or Ms. Madar, any comments?
And even though, as she said, the maths is important, that is one of the subjects when you are applying for a job in the job market out there. They want to know that you have maths and English. And I just wanted to give an example. Some persons may say, well, why are we saying, it confusing one way, like if you're looking at a maths problem or a symbol or something, and it is confusing how different it is. And I just want to give an example, a simple example. If you are going to Braille, as you say in the every format, if you're going to Braille, just write a simple say $2.25. Your dollar sign and your point sign in EBI is totally different from the dollar sign and the point sign in UEB. So yes, with the maths, it is going to be confusing if we are learning one way and then the exam is coming in another format. So that needs to be standardized.
No, I agree. I completely agree.
Yes, Ms. Das. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was just asking Shannon if she had a comment. Yeah. So I was just giving the example about even if you're just going to write $2.25, the difference, in EBI, it's the dollar sign and the point sign is brailled one way, and in UEB it is brailled another way.
So, okay. So what I'm saying is we as a community, as a society, we need to do our own lobbying. And I would have, intentionally went down this road of conversation because I know there would be teachers listening to this probably afterwards if they're not online now. And they would be, wondering the same thing. How do I get my child to perform in the classroom and do the mathematics and do the science and so on? And the short answer that is the UEB system. We need to ensure our children knows the UEB system so that we can have a standardized system going forward, not just in Trinidad or the Caribbean or England or North America, but the UEB system is standardized throughout the world. And it allows for a number of things. It allows for the computer through the embossing system of books. It allows for Braille input on phones. It allows for the Braille displays. And also it allows for, Shannon pointed out, an easier system. Instead of learning 3 and 4 different systems, it allows for just learning one particular code system. Now, we have to do our work, meaning all of us have to do our work to represent what should be the future, what should be the easier thing, the smarter thing to do for children in exams. But while we do that homework and while we do that work, we cannot allow the children to suffer. We cannot allow the learning process to suffer. And I say that to say, when I was in class with my colleague and he was using Braille, He said, Lacan, oh, I can't remember the sign for power. Was the power of 3, you know, doing algebra expressions and so on. I say, boss, spell out the word now. 3x to the power and POWER to the power 2. Yeah. He laughed. He said, well, that makes like the most amount of sense. I say, anybody here know this brain? No. And you have to read it back for them? You know you're right. You're right for you to understand. It don't always work out because when you go in an exam and you write like that, the examiner who's correcting the exam is lost. They don't know what gibberish you just wrote. They don't know what madness you write here. And it confuses the system, it confuses the examiner who may know it. But in the interim, I'm saying, while we may not accomplish the process of learning Braille to the point of being able to present it back in an exam, I am saying we should still use whatever Braille system we know to understand the concepts in the classroom, the learning experience in the classroom. We needed the Braille, whatever it be English Braille, it need American Braille, it is Nemeth code or UEB Braille. We should, as stakeholders in this education system, ensure our children who are in schools, ladies, know some type of Braille to understand and accept the learning process. We're coming close to the end of the session, but before we go, I want to point out something and you all tell me the relevance of it. Braille is a code that we use to learn, right? As persons who are blind and visually impaired to read and express ourselves and so on. But tactile is also a very important aspect to our lives in the learning process. Tactile diagrams, tactile symbols. You know, if you know, recently in Trinidad and Tobago, I should say recently, a few years now, we have had tactile symbols placed on our currency. And people still believe that is Braille. What's your opinion on that?
Who do you want
It's
to go
tactile
first?
Braille.
Anybody can go first, or are you asking us individually?
Anybody?
Okay, so I am just going back to when I entered into school for blind. Tactile, I just want to say tactile is very important, right? But I'm starting when I entered into school for blind and we had classes. I remember they had this machine where they would do diagrams. We started doing where you would have drawings, you know, where you had children painting, coloring, all of that. So they had this machine where they would do the diagrams with wool, and then the machine would print out the diagram, would raise in the diagram form where you can feel and actually color in, or you could feel whatever the object is or whatever the diagram is, and you would know, well, this is what a dog feels like, or this is what a plate or cup or tree, you know, because especially when you lose your sight from young, you have to have an understanding, you have to have an understanding how things are shaped or looked, have a rich kind of image in your mind, whether you're right or wrong, right? Your image, you know, how things feel, how you imagine things, right? In terms of tactile, because when you go to places and you feel male toilet or female toilet, you feel the Braille. Tactile, it's raised. They have it in a way that it's raised so you can feel it. You can read the words. Tactile in terms of things in the drugstore. I remember buying a cough medicine, and I was really happy to actually feel the name of the cough medicine on the box, you know?
Right, but Ms. Fasalin, that's so mix it up. The point I'm bringing is what you're speaking about is Braille on those concepts. I'm talking about the concept of tactile, for example, they use the washrooms. There is a raised male symbol or a raised male, and how you know the female symbol is because it have like a triangle, like a skirt. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
that is what I'm talking about. Because we're talking about Braille and learning Braille and reading and using Braille in the learning process. But somewhere along the line, we need to understand that tactile symbols, because we live in a
Very
visual
important.
world. We live in a world where visual designs and visual everything helps the learning process. In fact, it's said that observation or through visual is a majority form of learning. You know, you consume online learning from visual. My question was the importance of it, what's the difference and the importance of it? And Ms. Das and Ms. Mara, you could jump in anytime here with the tactile. But I'm saying diagrams, learning the shape of the heart, learning the shape of a flower, whatever it may be. Is it relevant? Is it necessary?
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump in here. It is everything we're speaking about is very necessary and relevant. Even we recently created the tactile coloring books, and some young children, I mean the 7 and 8 year olds, started using it in schools. So when it was coloring time, they are taking out their tactile coloring book, and even being able to participate to color within the lines. So even if it is a tactile image of a hot air balloon or a sailboat, they can feel the outline and color within the lines. And then there are different degrees of the line. So the outline, the tactile outline is very much more punctuated. You could feel it. The dots are a bit thicker and heavier than the dots inside. Like if they want to indicate swirls or little triangles or anything inside of the drawing, the dots are much lighter. So yes, this feeling of touch gives our blind students a better indication of images. And so, and even sometimes when you're walking outside some pavements or some places where you go in the tile, the touch of the tile under your feet or your cane, it feels different. Some a little smoother, others a little rough. So you're able, to give yourself some sort of direction where you are in case you get lost. So yes, this tactile is very, very important.
All right. So we're coming to the end of the session today, and we have about 5 minutes again to go. And I just want to remind persons you can follow us on Trying to Make a Blind Welfare Association Facebook page and our YouTube channel, Instagram page as well. All right. And while we have a discussion on tactile, it's not the main discussion to today's event, but it would have been an introduction to the next conversation, which we will be having on the 26th of May, which is how to lobby and ask for basically, for help, for what you would like in the system, in the school system. Because many times we going to do these programs and people think the only thing they could do, the only thing they can get done is what the old system is like. What was practiced in the yesteryears. Sometimes technology may help, sometimes a newer system, a newer concept will help. But to kind of close off this discussion on Braille, we interdepend on everything. So while we may have tactile diagrams, we still need Braille words to describe it. There's another aspect of tactile called 3D printing. That's a whole big discussion for another day, another webinar. But the point I'm bringing is even in 3D printing, you have Braille words to help describe the symbol. Braille by itself is not the solution alone. Braille together with everything else, all the other mediums and methodologies, is as helpful and will be as helpful as print. We have graphs for mathematics. There's graph boards that is tactile, so you could actually feel the X and Y axis and the different different graph in the graph sheet. So you may have curve graphs, you may have straight line graphs, but I hope our information today would have kind of opened up some type of appetite for the teachers and the students in the school system to know that there is possibilities and there is very low cost possibilities too. All right. And as we close, I would just like to hear your closing comments from each one of you on the discussion we had this morning, and what's your recommendation going forward? Who's going first?
Okay, so I will go first. Although I didn't want to go first.
Well,
Today's discussion was I enjoyed it. I want to say I'm glad that we have made an effort to actually start talking about this, because I think it's something that should be continually discussed and to be continually raised, because we do need young persons who are coming up into the school system to love school and to to do the best that they can, right? To do the best that they want to do. And I think for visually impaired and blind children, it's really important that this discussion has been made so teachers and parents and other stakeholders can hear what we have to say, and also can start to assist and see how they can also help change certain systems that needs to be changed for students that are visually impaired and blind in the school system.
Okay, so to our younger audience, the children who are in preschool, primary school, reading and writing is fun. It is exciting. In order to participate in class with your classmates, you would need to be Braille literate. And being Braille literate, you need to learn the letters of your alphabet, your numbers, your punctuation, so you will be able to read and understand and be excited as everyone else in class and participate. So I just want to encourage the younger ones out there to push and come out and learn your Braille. We are here to help you in that process. And parents, teachers, we would endorse encouraging the young ones to support them, to bring them out to the classes and get them involved in Braille literacy.
Right, and
Yes.
I agree with all of this, but I would just like to also encourage parents, introduce your children, your blind children, to Braille as early as possible. Just the same way you would get alphabet charts or growth charts, color charts, all these things for your sighted children, and put them up on walls, and so they have access to print at an early age. Our blind and visually impaired children, they also need access to Braille and to tactile things from a very early age, because these coloring books and all of that, they help with, other things like fine motor skills, and those are things that, they blind and visually impaired children kind of miss out on, because we don't have the need to hold a pencil, so yeah, introduce your children to Braille and to tactile things very early on.
All right, so thank you very much, ladies. And I just want to say, if you know someone who is blind or visually impaired, a child who needs to learn Braille, contact the Trinidad and Tobago Blind Welfare Association via our email, our Facebook page, our YouTube channel. Contact us via our WhatsApp phone and WhatsApp contact 395-3086. Feel free to call us at 652-2079 or 624-4675. Reach out to us. We have articles on The Guardian every Saturday that our contact information is shared there. But at the end of the day, this discussion, I mean, and I agree with Beverly, it needs to continue, and we need to continually vigorously with the stakeholders involved, the National Library, Ministry of Education, the teachers, tutor, all stakeholders in the process. And I totally agree with what was said this morning. And I look forward to having another discussion on this Braille and where we have reached and where we should be going again sometime in the future, hopefully the near future. Until next time, ladies, thank you very much. Thank you all for this morning and for viewing our program. My name is Lakansi Prasad, Manager of the Welfare Department, and it has been my pleasure. It is what it is.